Hey, how's it going, everybody? Shaun here for another movie review today. We're going to be talking about 2017's Justice League, or Justice League as it is sometimes called. The film is directed by the studio and Joss Whedon. I will say that. It says Zack Snyder. Zack Snyder's the credited director on this theatrical cut of this movie, but we all know the truth. There's been enough public brouhaha now that the Zack Snyder's cut of the movie, or he kind of reformed a new version after the fact, being able to kind of use all of his footage and all of the plot and all the story stuff, and didn't have to compromise like one iota. He was able to do that, so that's how it is. That's how it went. So I would say that Joss Whedon he's more the author of this at the end of the day. Although I think he was probably trying to serve Snyder's vision more than maybe some people give him credit for, But we'll talk about that. It stars Ben Affleck, Gal Gadot, Jason Momoa, Amy Adams, Ezra Miller, Ray Fisher, Jeremy Irons, Diane Lane, Connie Nielsen, J.K. Simmons, and others. The logline plot synopsis is: fueled by his restored faith in humanity, inspired by Superman's selfless act, Bruce Wayne enlists the help of his newfound ally, Diana Prince, to face an even greater enemy. So yeah, what do I think about the Justice League? I've never hated this movie. I thought it was pretty, it was just kind of like whatever. It's kind of forgettable, mediocre. Clearly was not in line with the movies that had come before. And like I said just a few seconds ago, I think Joss Whedon was trying to serve Snyder's vision, and maybe a little bit more than people would give him credit for. Because even Snyder himself completely, very shortly before they started shooting, they went into actual production, he actually took a lot of studio notes, took a lot of notes from the public as well, in terms of the tone and the grim darkness and how they didn't like that. So he had already kind of lightened the movie up. He had made it a little bit more jokey, a little bit more consumer friendly. Not to say that it wasn't like his vision or his version of it, but it was definitely a more kind of populist movie, rather than being kind of Zack Snyder's version of a populist movie, which is usually kind of cynical and nihilistic, I would say. You might be able to use the word nihilistic. Go watch Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, which we've talked about over the past couple of days. Not exactly fist-pumping, crowd-pleasing movies, I'd say. They're a little bit more melancholy in their own weird way. But he, even himself, had kind of changed tact with the Justice League, and he was going to blow it out of the water and make it like a big event thing, a big crowd-pleaser. And he never got a chance to finish it. He had a family tragedy. He had a daughter that committed suicide, and he just couldn't do it anymore. He couldn't fight with the studio. And the studio, behind the scenes, was kind of trying to undermine him the whole time. Like, they had people there, to watch him while he was shooting the movie, and, maybe offer suggestions. Like Jeff Johns, who is a comic book writer, wrote a lot on Batman, but now he's, head of DC. And he was I think he was one of the leads for the DC, film department or whatever, what they were doing at Warner Brothers. And him and a couple other guys, they were kind of sent down to keep tabs on Zack Snyder. So the whole thing was just kind of not, the studio got really gun shy about Snyder's vision after the negative critical reaction and underwhelming box office of BVS and Man of Steel. Man of Steel had the same problem. The reason why they wanted to rush Snyder into doing kind of a Justice League movie, or setting up a Justice League movie and introducing Batman faster, was because Man of Steel underperformed. Even though it made a bunch of money, it did not do the $2 billion. It didn't do Marvel money. It came close to it, but it didn't do Marvel numbers. So they were very concerned about what they were doing. They're like, I guess we got to put Batman in it. Got to do a movie with Batman. So they do that. Zack Snyder delivers his version of a Batman Superman movie. And people didn't like that either. So with this one, they wanted to change the tone and everything. And I think when Joss Whedon came in, he definitely came in as a studio man. He came in as a pretty hot director at the time. 2017, he had done 2 very successful Avengers movies that generally people like, even though I know even the general public, Ultron is not like people. Wouldn't hear somebody say that Ultron is their favorite Avengers movie, but it's generally pretty well liked. And he has, as a director, if he has any talent, I would say it's in finding the balance between that many characters. as much as I kind of don't care about the Avengers movies, because I don't care about those characters and I don't think the stories are very good. Um, he's as a director, he does a really good job with what he's given, and they go for those big, broadly appealing, broadly entertaining kind of spectacle movies, and that's what he was trying to wrangle some of the Justice League into. I'll be very curious to see what is and isn't Snyder's, because Snyder's version of the movie, he didn't use any of Joss's footage, and apparently Joss reshot like a lot of the movie. So I'll be very curious to see like what was and wasn't his. I mean, I've heard a few rumblings that people were actually surprised at some of the lightness that Zack Snyder had brought to the movie. So it kind of confirms what people were saying while the movie was being made, was that like he listened to the studio, he listened to kind of the criticisms and kind of moved forward from that to try to give people something maybe more that they would expect. So Zack Snyder kind of, then in a very un-Zack Snyder fashion, kind of compromised. And this time, with his new cut, he didn't have to whatsoever. He didn't have to compromise at all. But the movie as it is this way, it's always felt like a Frankenstein's monster. It's always kind of felt like patchwork and kind of just all over the place. The tones would be all over the place, kind of. Obviously, they wanted to make it a more like fun family affair. I think Joss Whedon goes in and tries to insert some of his Whedonisms. Suddenly everybody's talking in quips and stuff like that, which kind of drives me crazy, because Joss Whedon as a writer is just one of those guys that like every character sounds like Joss Whedon. Max Landis is another dude who's got this problem. Every single character, you just hear their voice. And the movie was just kind of full of that stuff. They neutered kind of the central plot. They neutered the heart of the movie a little bit. They cut out most of the extra stuff with the extra character stuff. It was also, there was a studio mandate that this be a 2-hour movie. And so allegedly Zack Snyder was going to be beholden to that as well. So I have no idea what like Snyder would have been able to do, because he just makes these giant, messy, sprawling movies. So I don't even know if he could have done a good 2-hour version of the Justice League. But, Whedon, that was his task, and that's what he was paid to do, and he did it. And he delivered something. It's not like an incoherent mess. It's not the worst thing you've ever seen. Some of it works, some of it doesn't. In the pantheon of superhero movies, is definitely on the lower end, if you were to like kind of number them or something like that, if you were to put them on a grade. Yeah, and it just feels kind of listless a little bit, It's not what you wanted as a sequel to what had come before. Like, if you had liked the other movies, I don't know how you could find this entertaining. Like I said, it's not, or not entertaining, but like it like you did the other ones. There is a kind of a corporate, kind of by committee feel to the whole movie. And you can feel like the studio and Snyder's visions clashing, and what they wanted the movie to be like, what they wanted the movie to feel like. You can feel it all over the movie, almost from scene to scene. It feels that way. But I don't know. Some people consider it an abomination. Some people almost take it personally. A lot of Zack Snyder fans really kind of go overboard, in my opinion, with like how they feel about Zack Snyder and how they feel about defending him, because he's like this great aestheticist, and he does a lot of good work, and he does a lot of interesting things. He likes ideas. He doesn't necessarily know how to fully explore them in his movies, but he's like, well, I'll just throw it out there, see what happens. And sometimes that can feel very unsatisfying, but it allows people to kind of just project a lot of importance and a lot of depth into something that maybe wasn't intended. Which, hey, more power to him, I suppose. If you're able to at least create a reason for people to talk about your movie, that's a good thing, I suppose. That's more than you're going to get out of most of these kinds of movies. And that is not the case here. This is the most straightforward, stripped down, bare bones possible version of this story. So I'm very curious on Thursday what we're going to find when we get a 4-hour version. Because it is going to be largely, at least to some degree, it is going to be the same story. It's not. I think it's going to be filled in a lot. They're going to add those character elements. They're going to add those arcs back. They're going to add all that extra stuff that kind of makes you like these movies. That's why kind of Zack Snyder's movies, I think, like especially the superhero stuff, is more interesting because he will take the time to kind of just do a lot of character work. I mean, BVS, whether you like that movie or not, he takes a lot of time with with Bruce Wayne. He takes a lot of time with Clark Kent and how they feel about the world and what has developed their worldview. He really wants to get into the psychology of the characters. And here, not so much. I think like the characters, he wouldn't have done that again with Superman and Batman and even Wonder Woman. It was going to be about the Flash and it was going to be about Cyborg. Like they were the ones that were going to have character arcs. They were the ones that were going to have like kind of their story told through this narrative and have it probably parallel to some degree the threat that was going on, and that was how they could come to terms with who they were and live up to their potential. Like I'm assuming that is probably what we're going to get when we watch the longer version on Thursday, tomorrow. Very excited. But yeah, like I said, I don't have a ton of like deep or interesting thoughts about the movie. I think people have talked about this thing to fucking death. And it's one that I'm just like, I've probably watched it like 5 times. Honestly, I watch it probably once a year, a couple times a year. Also, I have a 3-year-old kid who this is a good movie for him because it's just kind of wall-to-wall superhero stuff. It's just kind of jam-packed. It is like for a kid. It's like a kid's movie. So there you go. So it works in that capacity. But in terms of being the ultra serious, gritty Zack Snyder movie that you're looking for, no, it's not. It's not that at all. But I like Ben Affleck. I like the cast. I think the cast is actually really good. And I think they actually have pretty decent chemistry even in this cut of the movie. And it makes it entertaining. Like I've never been a hater of this movie. I saw it in the theater. I actually saw it with both my brothers, Dan and Ryan. We made Dan buy us the tickets, and we went to see it in 3D. Saw it opening night. It was like us and like 10 other people, which is kind of wild. But yeah, and I remember walking out of the theater and being like, this is fine. Like it was not like great. It didn't blow my fucking mind. I didn't think it was nearly as interesting as Man of Steel or BVS. All the flaws that they have, they're interesting movies. It was just so straightforward. It was just kind of forgettable, Maybe that's why I watch it so much, because it's so forgettable. I just kind of forget the particulars of the story. So every time I watch it, it's like a fresh look. And it has some of my favorite bad lines, bad performances. Jason Momoa gives an epically, awesomely bad performance as Aquaman in Justice League. He's like, actually, I like him as the character, but just like the way he acts, the nature of him, whatever Momoa is bringing to it, that energy that he brings to it makes me laugh. Makes me laugh. All right, everybody. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to know more about Zoobox, there's a bunch of links in the description for Facebook, for Instagram, for my Twitter, for Dan's Twitter. Also, check out our other YouTube page. It's kind of like a backup page for this channel if it ever gets swiped down. Also, check us over on D Live. That's where we do most of our live streaming. And this week, since if you watch this, usually we do Zoobox Live on Wednesday nights. But we're moving it to Thursday night this week because we got some other things to do on Wednesday night. All right, everybody. You have the best one ever. Goodbye.